Well, let's get more now on that news that the cost of rural crime has risen by a staggering 22% in the last year as organised criminal gangs target farm machinery. New data released by NFU Mutual shows that rural crime cost the UK around £49.5 million in 2022 alone. Well, for more on that, I'm joined now by Buckingham, who's farm manager at Hill Farm in Framsden. Glenn, lovely to talk to you. Just tell us a little bit about what's happened to you on your farm.
Well, good morning, Jane. Yeah, so what's happened here is we've had 3 or 4 years where we've had GPS thefts. That's the equipment used to guide our machinery in the fields. The most recent incident took place in May, and a steel door was broken down. Unfortunately, we do use more secure methods now to store our equipment, and nothing was taken. But on that very same night, 2 other farms locally were broken into, and equipment was stolen.
So why these GPS devices? I mean, obviously they're very useful for you because you're using them to, as we can see with your combine behind you, you're using them for your crops and for planning. But what use would they be to thieves? Is there a big resale market?
Yeah, so there is a market. They are taken out of the country, probably simply in the boot of cars or suitcases, and they end up possibly Eastern Europe or elsewhere in the world where people perhaps can't afford to buy that equipment and find that as a cheap way to get to this technology. And once the passcodes are broken, then actually it becomes available and useful to people. So basically what happens is that we have boxes like these. You can see it, the screen in the cab, and that box is £5,000. And the receiver, which is on the top of the machine, and there are all sorts of different brands, looks like this, and that's another £5,000. And basically, it appears the gangs tour the country and looking for them. One of the more interesting things is that on some of our mapping software nowadays that normal people use for getting from A to B, if you overlay that with satellite imagery that comes, you can actually spot these pieces of equipment on the roofs of tractors. And so actually, mapping devices, direction finders and things are not helping us just at the moment.
What kind of impact is it having on your ability to farm? I mean, obviously, when these things get nicked, you've got to replace them. There's a delay there. But, I mean, it must be also quite soul-destroying.
So it is. So there are several issues, really. One is, of course, the fact it's pretty galling that someone's been around your farmyard in the middle of the night. We do have CCTV. I don't get up every morning and look at it. I look at it when I think something may have happened. But for all I know, someone was here last night. I don't know without checking. But there's nothing untoward has happened, as we're to tell. The second part of this, actually, you talk about the delays. This machine behind us, it's £500,000 of combine, actually won't operate without it. And that's quite the case with most brands. These parts are integral to the operation of the machines. And so, if it happens in harvest at a time, whether it's even potatoes or combines or whatever, because we're now using so much of this technology, it can disrupt farm business.
So it's essentially like somebody taking the keys.
It virtually is, really. We don't have to lose the machine, but we lose a component that is vital.
Do you feel the police are working adequately on this?
So we have the National Crime Unit working for rural crime, and that's a great step forward. Our police commissioner in Suffolk is actually the head of that for the national organisation, which is very useful. At the Suffolk show this year, we met with him and we met with our police service in the rural team. There are only 6 people in the rural team, and that's arguably not resourced well enough. There are issues that I, in my event, nobody came afterwards. I get a crime number. Our neighbouring farmer, a similar event, a crime number. One other farmer did have a visit. It would be good if there was more on-the-ground police force really on this subject.
And as you say, you're bringing in a lot of security measures. 11 bolts, I read, that they cut through that night that you saw that there was somebody on your farm. And even then, luckily, they didn't manage to take anything, but they had a jolly good go, didn't they?
They did. So they were 15 minutes out of sight of my camera, operating on this door, and then you open the latch, and it removes bolts around the door frame. When I spoke to the supplier, his reaction was, "What? They opened that door?" And I said, "Yeah, they did." Quite what they used, I couldn't see from the CCTV what they were carrying, but two gentlemen having a good look round, and disappeared out of view. It's amazing.